All right, episode 31, Winded City Countdown. I'm Scott Sterno, joined with Ben Russo and Matt Urich, and we are excited for the week ahead because we are 6 days from our first USA soccer game. So we're going to preview some of that today. We've got some Cubs and White Sox stuff, but we got some basketball things that we need to hit first and foremost, including letting Ben emerge from the dumpster fire that is the Bulls to give some hot takes, the hottest of takes from the fire. Boys, how are we this on this Wednesday evening?
I can't really complain. I guess feeling good, feeling excited about the Copa America next week, and ready to talk some sports.
Ben, how you doing over there?
Good, good. I got a couple more days at the old job, and then I get some days off. We get to watch some soccer, hang out with you guys, always fun. Drink a little bit, play some arcades, be losers, the normal stuff.
That's the way we like it. We wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't have it any other way. Let's start with the fun, which is the actual games on the court. Let's start in the basketball realm, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Couldn't get it out there.
Scott's having a stroke.
Oklahoma City Thunder blew it, right? I mean, is there any other way to put it, Ben? Did they blow it?
Oh yeah, I mean, the game 5 and 6 when they had the late leads, and just, I mean, you're not going to do anything to stop, Clay and Steph when they're that hot. But I mean, to just not score points, to try, basically they tried to not score points is what it seemed like. They basically ran. It was game 5. They basically ran ISO like the last 3 minutes of the game, essentially just trying to wind the clock down and hope that clock's going to expire before Golden State can get enough points. Well, that's where the 3-point shot is so beneficial, especially for Golden State, because the score just gets chopped so quickly when you get 2 threes and all of a sudden you get those 6 points and you're right back in any game. And I mean, just it was unbelievable to watch. They would just run down, and it would be Russ or Durant would just grab the ball at the top, let the clock tick down to 8 or 9 seconds, try and make a move, and they would get nowhere. I mean, they would get 14, 15 feet away, and they'd be throwing up some fadeaway jumper that just went nowhere. I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable to see. And then, I mean, even in Game 7, they had the lead at halftime, correct? I want to say they had a 6 or 7 point lead at halftime, whatever it was.
It was 6. They were down. Golden State was down 5 at the end of 1, and then they were down 6 at the end of 2. And I looked at that and went, "How are they only up 6? That is unbelievable. That's all they're up right now." And
and then
to Game 6, it was a 96-89 game when Kevin Durant made a 2-point shot with 5:09 to go.
Yeah, I mean, they just completely stopped playing. It was unbelievable to me, what they did. I mean, you knew, there were a lot of people who wanted to write off Golden State after that 3-1 series, but, deep down you kind of figured, I mean, I think we even talked about it where it's not necessarily over. I mean, obviously down 3-1 isn't ideal, but in the back of my head I was like, if you don't win Game 6, it's over. And then the way they lost Game 6, again, coughing up a late lead, you're like, okay, we talked about it, where we both, I think you were very adamant that there's no way Oklahoma City wins it. I basically said, yeah, I don't see them winning. Obviously, I'm not going to say they can't, but you really just looked at the team and you're like, they're deflated. They made that late run, but then, of course, fell apart again. Like you said, it really just seemed like they were trying to give away the series, really, those last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at 96-89, the Warriors end the game on a 19 to... Hold on, what is it? I'm sorry. Yeah, 96-89, a 19-5 run for Golden State in the final 5 minutes. I mean, and granted, you look at some of the ways they scored here. I mean, the 3-pointers being hit 25 feet, 24 feet, 26 feet. I mean, it is just they're launching them from way out there, and it spreads the the defense out so much.
But
Matt,
that's the thing is that it's not like they weren't uncontested shots. I mean, you had hands in the face and they were hitting these things. But that's what I mean is there's nothing you're going to do to stop those. You have to continue to play your game, and so it's basically like playing. I think Matt, I think you said it, that it was almost like they were playing prevent offense. You know, they were trying not to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then it was like at the end of both Game 6 and Game 7, it was as if the Thunder had no idea how to play basketball. It really looked like that, and especially, the turnovers, especially in Game 6, both Russ and Durant were really, really, really bad down the stretch, and then in Game 7, like you were talking about, I mean, Golden State would just go down there and they were making everything hands and face. I mean, it didn't matter who was on Steph. I mean, guys were rolling out. You had Steven Adams up there putting a hand in his face. Didn't seem to matter. Durant was putting a hand in his face. Didn't matter. It really did not matter who they had on the field guarding him. On the court guarding him. And same with Clay. I mean, that was the thing when Steph was struggling in both those games, because he struggled a little early in both those games, and Clay was just so on his game. And like Ben talked about earlier, when you could hit threes consistently like that, because even Durant said something about that after Game 7, that he said, we beat them in every area except the 3-point, and that's what killed us. And it's true. I mean, I guess in the most part, if you look statistically at everything, for the most part, they pretty much dominated in every facet of the game other than 3 points. And that's basically what Golden State did, and it proves why they're such a dangerous team. When Steph and Clay can essentially hit a shot from anywhere on the court, I mean, they're tough to beat. Plus, they got really good depth too. I think that sort of goes unnoticed when you got guys like Sean Livingston can come in and play solid minutes, and Iguodala plays solid minutes. They're a strong team.
Yeah, I read a tweet from Simmons the other day, and it was Steph and Clay hit 30 3-pointers combined in Games 6 and 7, and there were 17 total 3-pointers made combined by both teams in the 86 finals. And it just shows you, like, in 30 years where the game has gone, where at some point somebody looked at it and went, man, if you take a 3-pointer, that's worth more than a 2-pointer.
Yeah. And wow, we should probably get better at doing that.
And I think back to like us as kids playing, all the NBA games, and all you want to do is, I want to take a three, I want to take a three, I want to take a three. Right, everything for three, and it's like, why would why take any other shot? Because it's worth more points, and unless I'm dunking or laying in the basketball, there's really no reason for me to take a 2-point shot when I can drift back an extra 5 to 10 feet and have myself an extra point shot.
And the other thing, too, real quick, and it's not really in line with the 3-point thing, was I noticed on the call in Game 7, because it was it Marv Elber, Reggie Miller, and Chris Webber, I believe, and Reggie Miller kept pointing out constantly how much after every time something would go wrong for the Thunder, somebody's pointing fingers, somebody's yelling at somebody else. Like, that team completely just unraveled in like every way. I mean, you saw Durant, he's on the bench, he's yelling. One of the assistant coaches I remember came over and sort of put his hand on his shoulder to try and calm him down, and Westbrook's giving people bad looks, dirty looks when the ball rolls out of bounds, blah blah blah. I mean, it's hard to win as a team when you're pointing fingers every time something goes wrong.
All right, so now to the big question: where does Durant go?
I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm with Ben. I don't think there's a whole lot of options that are better than where he is right now.
I think Boston's a better option. I think Boston's only a better option because they're in the Eastern Conference. It may not be a better team, but it's not having to go through Golden State, San Antonio. Even the Clippers, I think, would have come out of the East this year.
But we talked about this before, is where, I'm not. I don't think you can sit here and write off San Antonio, but it's clearly going to be a different team, and I just think the amount of money that he would turn away by not going back to Oklahoma City, it's asinine. There's no way. I mean, he'd still be a contender in Oklahoma City, and he'd have all that money.
I don't disagree. I think it. To say that there's not a situation better than Oklahoma City, though, financially, you're absolutely right. Financially, there's no better option. But to get out east, I think, is a better option. To get
but I don't think it's a better option. I mean, I understand what you're saying that he's in the East, but then to get to assuming you even get to the finals, and again, this is assuming that LeBron is staying in Cleveland. I mean, you'd still have to get through them, and then you'd still have to get through seemingly Golden State or San Antonio in the finals. So I mean, it's not like he's guaranteed. Yeah, maybe it's better hypothetically because he won't lose in the conference finals. He'll lose in the NBA finals, but even
then, do you think like a Boston team with him can beat LeBron?
No,
because I don't. I mean, that Cleveland, for as much as people want to rag on them, which I don't understand, or more so how much people want to rag on LeBron, but I mean that team's still pretty good. Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving.
I mean, again, do you think? I mean, and this is just asking a simple question. I mean, take who they'd have to play out of it. Do you think Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook together have a better chance of winning an NBA title than Kevin Durant and Isaiah Thomas? Or, I mean, I don't even know who the hell else Boston's going to bring in there. I mean, to me,
it's going to be
Durant
tough to
and
find.
Westbrook still together is still
exactly
the best combo you can get.
Yeah, he's not upgrading in that regard. He's not bringing along somebody else that is going to be better than Westbrook. So it makes. Go ahead.
He very well could bring somebody else along, but who's he bringing along?
Well,
who's the next guy? I mean, is Al Horford and Kevin Durant really a NBA championship combo? Is Kevin Durant, Hassan Whiteside winning the championships? No, there's absolutely no way.
Well, and like you had said something to us earlier in the week or a couple days ago, whenever it was, about him, how it would seem more likely that he would take a deal like LeBron, the 1 year sort of. Because how does LeBron's work? He's signed for
it's
what?
A 2-year contract with an opt-out after the first year, which he's basically always going to take the opt-out because then he gets that bump in
money.
pay.
Yeah, and that makes the most sense for Durant, because what's Durant, 25, 24, somewhere in that range?
No, he's older than that. I want to say he's like 27-ish, 27, 28.
Yeah, that's probably
I could be wrong on that, but maybe.
But, I mean, it makes sense because at that age, I mean, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he take a deal like that? And if you're Oklahoma City, I mean, you're kind of screwed either way. You got to give him, you're not going to let him walk. If he's like, well, I want a 2-year deal with a 1 year, opt-out, they're not going to say, nah, we'll let you go, because why would they let him go? They've got the money to do it, and he can make more money by staying in Oklahoma City.
Well, then next year you get the Russell Westbrook decision too, so...
Yeah. So
it's kind of one last gasp, essentially, is what I would think.
Well, and I wonder too if it plays into Oklahoma City's thought process. What do they do? Do they decide? Would you rather have Durant long term, or would you rather have Westbrook long term? If Westbrook's up after next year, then that's a decision you have to make, obviously.
For sure. So, it'll be interesting to see, and let's quickly. We'll get into the finals next week if we do a pod. I don't know. We're probably not doing a pod next week with everything we have going on. Maybe Thursday or something like that. But quickly, Cavs, Warriors. Ben, who you got?
I'm going to go with the Cavs. I don't feel comfortable with it. I mean, that'll basically be the team I'm rooting for anyway. But, yeah, I mean, Golden State probably wins, but I'll be pulling for the Cavs.
How many games?
If the Cavs win, it's going to be 7.
Okay, Matt,
I don't see. Yeah, they're not winning in like 4 or 5.
I think it. Ben says it. Same thing. I don't trust either team really at this point. I mean, Cleveland's done some really good things, but they also haven't really been tested that much either. I mean, Toronto sort of, but not really.
I think the biggest thing to me is how Cleveland plays them. If Cleveland plays them like they did last year, I think they can win that series.
Agreed. With a healthy Kevin Love.
Right, but they have to play it that style where they actually played legit defense and forced Steph Curry to take some tough shots. I mean, you remember last year's Finals MVP was Andre Iguodala with pretty low numbers overall.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they play that style, but then have more talent on the court, they can win. I mean, they won 2 games last year with LeBron and a bunch of crap. So I
Yeah.
mean, to have the team around them, I think they certainly have a chance.
I'm gonna go Warriors in 5.
Wow.
Warriors in 5. This was their oh shit moment, and now they're gonna be ready to go. Um, so there you go. So NBA. Let's quickly touch on the dumpster fire in Chicago. Ben, what did you make of Joakim Noah's the articles coming out about Joakim Noah?
I mean, I don't think it's a surprise that he wasn't coming back. I think it was what he said that was the surprise. I mean, coming out and basically, and again, we don't know exactly if this is what he said or what somebody else is reporting. I mean, every reporter has their, motives to do
Source.
things.
Yeah.
So, to come out and basically, it basically made it seem like he's blaming Gar Forman for him not coming back, blaming Gar Forman for this team falling apart, Gar Forman for this team not having a future.
Well, at least he understands what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, I've said I've said it multiple times on here about Joe Cowley, and this was Joe Cowley's article that came out with it. He's been saying this, he's been beating this drum for the last 2 or 3 years that the players don't like or trust Gar Forman. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Jimmy, the only reason why he hasn't been a bigger issue, and he was an issue, is because, according to Cowley, that all these players trust Paxson. It's Foreman that they don't trust. But at a certain point, if that's the case, why isn't Paxson stepping up and doing something about this? I mean, and apparently he talked about how Hoiberg doesn't even really like Foreman. I mean, a lot of stuff out of the bag, and I mean, it's not a surprise. I mean, there's a reason a team with that much talent failed that miserably last year. So you figure it had to be something along those lines, and I'm glad it's coming to earth, and hopefully something gets done about it. But at this point, I think you kind of are what you are. So.
I will not hold my breath on this one at all. So that was pretty crappy to see. Unfortunately, it is what it is. You look at the situation, and these are things that are coming to light. Like if these were problems for Paxson and above, Foreman would be gone. But they obviously don't look at it as a problem, and the distrust that's happening in the organization is status quo. I mean. But you look at Reinsdorf, I mean, even going back to the Bulls and the titles they had in the 90s, you look at all that. Nobody liked Krause. Nobody liked Krause. Nobody liked Krause. Nobody liked Krause. Paxson is married to his picks. Then you go to what he's running on the South Side and Kenny Williams and the Kenny Williams Ozzie Guillen saga. And it's just like, my goodness, can we please just not have that be what defines Jerry Reinsdorf-owned teams? It's just... It gets a little old for me. All right, moving on to a little baseball talk. The Cubs got on a roll again, remember? When the sky was falling for many Chicago fans, and
because what did they go, like 4-8 in a 12-game stretch or something?
They were
like
4-11.
I think it was worse than that.
Yeah, it was not good. They lost. Let's see.
Well, they lost it basically all started with that doubleheader loss to the Padres.
San Diego, yeah.
So 2 in a row to the Padres, then they lost 1 of 3, or 1 of 3. So they were 1-4 for a stretch, and then like 2-6, and then
you lost
3-8. So there's something like 3-8, I think, and then all of a sudden they're rolling again, and you sweep the Phillies, which I thought was interesting when you look at it from the point of view of. Here are the Phillies. They think they're maybe okay, and the Cubs are like, "No, you're not."
The Phillies just have pitching. The problem is if you score more than like 2 or 3 runs, Phillies got nothing.
For sure. So after seeing that mini slump, where's the Cubs' biggest need for you, Ben?
It hasn't changed. It's a reliever, and it's specifically a left-handed reliever. Clayton Richard is just an absolute pile of shit.
That was some hot garbage last night. Oh, my.
Yeah, that was bad.
And, I mean, Travis Wood, I like him, but he is so hit or miss. He's not a guy that I want up, in late September or, in the playoffs where we need a solid out. And it's just it's unbearable to watch. I mean, nervous wreck whenever our bullpen comes into play.
Yeah, I'm interested to see when Joe Nathan's ready, if he can give us anything. and it makes me a little nervous. I was here going, man, Joe Nathan. I wonder if he can provide.
Yeah, the
You know, and
38-year-old coming off Tommy John.
Yeah, and you
Or
just
no, he's 40, I think.
and you
Yeah,
never
he's
want
over
you,
40.
yeah, and you never want to rely at all on uh just junk relievers, but you're not gonna you can't trade for one. I mean,
Not yet.
no, the only guy I'm trading for right now is one of the two guys from the Yankees, Chapman or what's his face, Miller, and I don't know that either one of them is going to become available.
Well, and I mean, given Chapman's little brush up with the domestic abuse, right? That's what it was with him.
Yeah.
In the offseason. I know that's something that's behind him for now, but it's one of those things. I don't know if the Cubs would really want to bring something like that into their locker room. In all honesty, just the way that how well put together that locker room is, and I know that shouldn't matter to a certain extent when you're trying to win a World Series, but I just think chemistry means something. So I honestly wouldn't really risk anything on him, and I have the feeling that the Cubs are going to continue to do, they're going to try grabbing some of these lower end guys that didn't get a good, didn't start off right or what, for whatever reason, and take a chance. I don't see them giving up anything huge for a reliever. I mean, you'd have to get something pretty really, I mean, at Chapman level if you're willing to give up prospects, but I don't think they're going to go after that. I'm fine with Rondon in the closer role. It's just that setup. When Strope's on, man, he's great, but when he's not, it's Carlos Marmol 2.0.
Yeah, I don't. A reliever would be nice. Otherwise, I'm ready to go to battle with this team because the biggest problem you're going to face here is if the Mets go, that's a tough series still. Noah Syndergaard's the ace of that staff now, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
So, I mean, he's Matt Harvey. There's something still not right with him. So I don't know. I have a lot of, I don't really have concerns with the hitting. I still assume Rizzo's going to figure it out. Hayward's going to figure it out. Bryant's going to just keep on coming. Addison Russell is just phenomenal this year as he lines out to second base, but it just I don't know. I'm not concerned about the hitting. I'm not really concerned about them scoring runs. I am concerned though about last night Arrieta gave you 7 solid, and then that was that. And then it was here's Clayton Richard, here's a big old pile of shit.
What a terrible God. Oh well, whatever.
It is what it is. It is one game. You just you start to look at it though, and you go, okay, who else is coming in besides? Clayton Richard's not good. Cahill's been all right.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys that I don't mind. Like Cahill's okay, Warren's okay, Strope's okay, Rondon's obviously solid. I mean, Justin Grimm is not what he was the last couple years. Obviously, they just lost Neil Ramirez, but he stunk anyway. Yeah, I mean, there's not much there, and I don't know. I know they got a couple decent guys in the minors, but can you really expect those guys to come up and put up those same type numbers in the big leagues?
For sure. On the flip side of town, though, my goodness, for all the nerves I have when Clayton Richard takes them out, at least we only have one Clayton Richard, and the Sox, man, they had themselves a week.
They lost what, 7 in a row before winning?
Seven in a row.
7 in a row,
including a game where they led with one down in the ninth. It was 7-1, nobody on and 1 out in the ninth, and they gave it all away. Oh.
Yeah, they had a late lead in all 3 games.
Can't do that. And now, of course, they've beaten the Mets twice this week. So, God only knows.
Baseball's weird, man.
Baseball is weird. Are they going to be all right? What do you do if you're them? I mean, for all intents and purposes, the cupboard is bare. There's not anybody to sign. So,
I mean, there was the James Shields talk, which
and then he gave up 10 unearned or whatever.
He'd fit right in with the rest of that bullpen. I'll tell you what.
No, I mean, obviously you don't you're not expecting him to give up 10 every night, and yeah, I mean maybe he would help shore up that 4 or 5 spot in the rotation, but he's clearly not the guy he was a few years ago. You can seemingly get him for nothing as long as you're willing to pay his whatever it is, 20-something million dollars a year, for the remaining time. But I mean, ultimately, their biggest trading chip is a guy that I think they need, which is Tim Anderson. I mean, you can't just give him up for nothing.
Nope.
When that's really your prime time prospect of the future, and he's got a lot of I'm trying to like a Felix Pa or even like Starling Castro type to him, because the Sox are really building him up, and he very well could be a great player, but this isn't like a top 20 prospect in baseball. Like he's the Sox best prospect, but he's basically just, I mean, he's more or less a guy.
He's like a top 40 guy, right?
I don't even think he's that. I don't know if he's top 50, to be completely honest. I'd have to look, but he's not.
Do they put Fulmer ahead of him or no?
You know what? I don't know.
Might be one of those too early to tell with Fulmer, just because it's, I mean, what he was.
I know Fulmer's pretty high. Fulmer might be ahead of him, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about guys that aren't necessarily the top prospects in baseball, but they're the top prospects for the team at least. So
yeah.
And so yeah, MLB.com has Tim Anderson as the White Sox #1 overall prospect. Let me see if they have him overall. Okay, so yeah, he's top 40. So you're right. I think he's number 40. So,
but still, that's not great. I mean, he very well could turn into being a really good baseball player, but sitting there, and if your best, your highest ranked prospect is only 40th overall, that's telling you something about where you are as a team in terms of moving forward, in terms of player development and stuff like that.
It's gonna get worse before it gets better. So
yeah.
Well, with that being said, that's what's going on this week.
That sounds like our podcast. We get worse before we get better.
That's true. We do get worse before we get better. We're going to have some Copa talk on a second podcast with Jake Campbell from the American Outlaws. He's going to join us. So be sure if you if you listen to this one, be sure to check out the other podcast. We're going to post both of them at the same time. So we'll have a whole podcast dedicated to the Copa America with Jake Campbell and everything that is American Outlaws. And we'll have that posted on Facebook shortly, along with some other stuff. And I'm hoping to do some posting during the day of the Copa with all the events and things going on, with some pictures of us downtown in our Team USA gear that we're all gearing up to watch. So, Matt or Ben, any closing thoughts before I wrap this up?
Go Cubs.
Go Cubs. Matt, Ben?
That's about where I'm at. Go Cubs.
Go Cubs. All right. So be sure to check us out again on iTunes. Subscribe there. We're on Stitcher. We're in the Google Play Store. Check us out all over. Thank you, as always, for listening.